I am surrendering this entire talk to this whole journey of my experiences with Sai, my understanding of the enigma called Sai, and my beautiful companionship with Sai. So, if I were to look at this whole journey, then I'd like to put it into three phases. And as I will narrate some of that story, I hope the three phases will start falling in place. I think the three distinct phases of my journey with him, one I would like to categorize as living for Sai. The second phase I would call living with Sai. And the third, the current phase, is what I call as living in Sai. So my journey with Sai started in the late 90s when Shirdi Baba came into our lives. And I just remember that I used to experience tremendous peace whenever I would go to Shirdi Baba's temple. And it would always be as if the idol would be talking to me. So when I and my family were staying in Bombay, we would invariably run over to Shirdi to be in the presence of Sai. And so 3 to 4 trips a year were common for us. Though my office in Bombay was about 1.5 kilometers away from Sathya Sai Baba's center in Dharmashetra, but I never saw it. I never went over there. I would travel 300 kilometers away to Shirdi, but never to Dharmashetra. It was only once I came back to Delhi from after my sojourn in Bombay ended, is when I came in touch with devotees of Sathya Sai Baba, and Swami stormed into my life. And my first trip to Swami was in the year 2007. I made up for the lost time because all the friends that I had been with Swami for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and I seemed to be the last entrant, so as to speak. But with the grace of the Lord, I caught up with the lost time. And I remember in 2008, when the registrar of the university asked me, "So Vikas, what is it that you would like to do?" And I told him I would like to set up an international center for human values and ethics. And he instantly retorted, "Then you've come to the right place. There is no better person to learn about human values than from the master." I said, "Which master are you talking about?" He said, "There is only one master. That's Baba." I said, "But Baba is going to teach me?" He says, "Of course." I said, "How can you say with that kind of a certainty?" He says, "Of course. You see, he will teach you personally." I was taken aback at the words of the registrar of university, Sri Lakshmi Narasimhan. And I thought he's lost his case or he's lost his mind. Why would Baba teach me, a no one, about human values? And he said, "Look, we are very busy right now with some functions." This was end of July. It was Guru Purnima 2008. And he said, "Why don't you go back and come on 11th of August and I will take you to Baba and then your teaching can begin." Now he made it sound so simple, as if Baba was waiting only for me and that he's going to personally instruct me. I found the whole conversation so ridiculous. And I thought he's a mad guy. He also gave me his mobile number and he said, look, give me a call anytime. I'll be happy to kind of answer all your doubts and questions and queries. And I walked out of that meeting with my dearest friend and soulmate, Dhruv Bhaiya, who was the one who introduced me to him, who is an old student. And he said, uh, he's given you his mobile number, but he normally doesn't answer his phone calls. He doesn't answer, he has a very antiquated kind of a mobile phone, but he normally does not answer the calls. So I said, all right. I didn't have any intention to come back. Those days, air travel was a little expensive. I had already spent quite a few days, and 11th of August was just about 11 days away, and there was no way I'm going to leave my work and come back again. So I had many reasons where I had made up my mind instantly that I'm not coming back, including that, I don't think this man knows what he's talking about. Notwithstanding my conviction, Saturday, the 9th of August, I started to hear this incessant voice in my mind saying, 11th August, 11th August, 11th August. And I just could not turn down the chatter in my mind. And I decided to give a call to Sri Lakshmi Nrsimhan, hoping that, as my brother had said, he's not going to pick the call, will give me a reason to not go over there, because I was not inclined to travel to Puttaparthi. So I, with great hopes of getting no response, I called him up. But you know how Swami works. He actually picked up the phone in 2 or 3 rings. And not only he picked up, he remembered my name because he had never saved my number. He picked up the phone and said, "Oh, is that Vikas? Yes, yes. Are you coming on 11th of August?" It was as if a tape was going on, a recorded message I was hearing. And I said, "But 11th is day after." He says, "Come, come, come." And he kept the phone down. And now I was caught. I decided to go ahead with this travel because it was too good to be true for a man of his seniority assuring me a private audience and private lectures with none other than Swami himself was an opportunity now I was not willing to let go. So even though it was reluctant in the beginning, but I made the best decision of my life to book a ticket and travel to Puttaparthi on that particular day. And then started a series of magical experiences for which days and hours and weeks are not enough to tell you what happened. But just to tell you that I went there every month. For almost 2 years, I went every month to Puttaparthi for a period of 1 week. And I would be made to sit right in front of Swami. Swami would not even look at me, would not even talk to me, would not even acknowledge my presence. But, maybe in 6 days, he would just barely look at me once, right? And I think the instruction started to happen in silence. And I started to get occupied and pulled into some works in the university. I started to start doing odd jobs around, but morning and evening darshan, I used to sit in the presence of the master. And very interestingly, after a couple of trips, magically, it was Swami who started to pay for my airfare and taxi fare for every trip to Puttaparthi. And I was amazed, I knew something was going on. And the experiences I were having uh, were making me doubt as if what I was experiencing was real, I started to think that there was some kind of a magic that happens in that place. Because I started to realize that the laws that operate within that ashram were so different from the laws that operate in the normal world. So as soon as those 7 days used to be over and I used to come back, I used to think you're pulled back into a completely hard world, yeah, right? Where everything was a struggle and everything was a challenge. Whereas uh, Puttaparthi seemed, and especially Prashanti Nilayam, seemed like a magical fairyland where things would happen on their own. And I had many, many esoteric experiences. I had many visions. He was exposing me to a bizarre side of life. At that time, I thought it was bizarre because my understanding of what was real was so different. Because, I was a successful finance professional who had led large multinationals and who had now a big consulting business in Delhi. And for me to experience things which were beyond the mind, which are paranormal, which can be very easily put as labeled as hallucinations or visions, uh, was uh, was very easy for you to fall into that kind of a trap. So I was witnessing on one hand something that was happening to me, with a little bit of a concern, because I was losing interest in my work, because I was able to take out 7 days every month and leave my work unattended. I was finding joy in doing that. I did not mind the loss of my business and being away from the family, experiencing things that I had never imagined before. Yet there was some pull that kept me going back again and again. And it was only in the month of December 2008 when Swami spoke to me for the first time. And he came to me and he said, "What do you want?" And I remember blurting out, "Swami, I want to set up an international center for human values and ethics." Swami raised his hand and said, "I bless you, my son." And at that instant, I went through a very familiar brain freeze. There were a million things I wanted to tell Swami, but in that moment, I just completely got lost. I lost awareness of being present in his presence. And he kept looking at me, smiled, and moved away. And that started me on to a mission. I now had a mission. I now had a purpose for my coming over there. And soon this story continued, and I realized that through being present in his divine aura, things had started to change for me. I experienced a lot of understanding of the mystical side of Swami as well as the practical side of Swami, because he would make me work in the trust, he would make me work in the university, he would use me as an errand boy to go to Anantapur. He would send me off onto working as a assistant on projects of sustainable energy in the villages around Puttaparthi. And I was amazed every time. What was I doing there? Why was I doing what I was doing? Why was I willing to risk all the things that I had taken so much of uh, effort to create in my life? And I could see on one hand, this was all slipping away from me, but there was this love of that form, which kept pulling me again and again. And I had series of dreams and series of visions when I would be present in his presence. And each time he would come and tell me, you and I are one. You and I are one. And that message was so relentless. He would come and tell me, all that you need to know is known to you. He started to tell me that you and I are going to do a lot of work together. He started to give me an insights into what the future looks like, how beautiful times are going to come, and what a glorious future holds for mankind. He would tell me things about my past through visions, and I would I was like filing everything somewhere back in my deep in my conscience, not knowing what at that point of time I was experiencing was the truth, or a powerful magician had taken hold of me and was completely brainstorming me. And I kept thinking about the Upanishadic chant, Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. And I kept asking myself, what is real and what is unreal? What I am experiencing now, is that real? Or what I experience when I go back, is that real? What is reality? I Back in Noida, I was part of the Samiti, uh, and there I had a lot of interest in what Swami's teachings were. And actually, it was his teachings that made me sign up for Swami. What was it that I really loved? What the master had to offer. And I actually signed up for that message of his. He said, I am God. You are also God. The only difference is that I know that I am God, and you do not know that you are God. And I have come to light the lamp of love in your heart so that it can shine brightly. And so bright that that love becomes your sense of identity. And you share this love with all whom you meet. Now that sounded something that I could relate to. And this was the first person, the first guru or the first master who was assuring the truth which has been resonating in our ancient culture through the Upanishads and the Vedas, where they say that Jagat is a mithya and Brahman is a Satya, right? That the reality of all of us is that truth that we are that God, and this world is unreal. And here was a master who is willing to put his skin to deliver us to our reality, to take us away from the unreal in which we are engrossed. He is willing to take us to the reason of our birth. To me, this was a profound proposition, and I was not willing to let go. And that was the reason why I used to attend the study circles And after a time, I stopped going to the study circles of Swami because I realized everybody was just repeating, including myself. We were repeating the teachings of the master. We would come and, share great quotations. And we would try to show how intelligent and how intellectual we were by quoting the master. But I realized I was not happy with that. I wanted to gain first hand experience. I wanted to experience when he said embodiments of love, embodiments of divine love is how he used to call us. I wanted to experience that truth. I wanted to experience the God within me. And that is what I signed up for. At that time, I did not know what I had signed up for, because when I look back at this journey, then it's a journey of detachment, and it's a journey of letting go. You see, we want to experience what is the real world by being present in the world that we are comfortable with. We want to be in our comfort zones with our understanding, with our limited capacity of what we believe to be the truth of ourselves and this world. And yet we want to experience what it feels to be God. At the time when I signed up for it, I did not know what all awaits me in this beautiful journey of living first for God. And that period of living for God was the period between 2007 to 2011, when Swami left his physical form. Because that time I was just an errand boy for Swami. I was doing things as I was instructed and as I was told. And my only intention of my life was to please my master. To please, not a master actually. I never called him a master. I still don't call myself a devotee. I call myself as a lover of Sai. I fell madly in love with him. I never stood up in the line of being counted as a devotee. I think between me and my Lord was a absolutely beautiful, torrid love affair, where I just fell head over heels in love with this most beautiful, loving form. And because he kept telling me that we are one, I started to believe in my master. Because I had tested him enough. I had tested him to be not an ordinary guru. I had experienced such powers and such presence which could move time and space. For him, all the three things of sthana, kala, paristhiti, the place, the time, and the causation, it just didn't matter to him. I had experienced it firsthand, not by just reading in books or hearing others' experiences. And I knew that I had come in in the presence of a master who could actually alter everything. And therefore, that gave me the belief, the faith that I am ready to go with this master and I'm ready to sign up with him. Right? And in that love that I had for him, I think that first phase of doing what was coming my way, as directed by him or his instruments, was how I would like to call that phase. And in that phase, interestingly, I let go of a flourishing consulting practice in business process restructuring, a company on in corporate governance, in which I was training board of directors of many companies, and I had quite a successful search company which was doing senior search work for large multinational banks and insurance companies. Uh, I let go of a staff of more than 30 people, office in Greater Kailash, M Block Market. I started to let go of everything because there was something that my soul was getting for which I was searching for. And all these worldly accomplishments and attachments slowly started to slip out of my hands. And by the end of 2011, I had shut all my enterprises. I had earlier left my job as Chief Financial Officer for AIG in India. And now I had set up these consulting outfits, but I let go of them. And I started to spend more and more time in developing a relationship with the inner guru or the inner sign, which started to emerge far more strongly in 2011 when he left his physical body. I used to experience a lot of oneness with him, but I still knew that I had to go to Puttaparthi to meet him. In those years, Swami sent me to various trips. He sent me overseas 3 times to Bali. He sent me to Malaysia. He sent me to Thailand. And, and wherever I would go, I would experience his presence with me. I would give talks in those science centers. I would have, there would be materialization of Vibhuti, Amritam, Kumkum. And, I used to wonder, what is this phenomena about? And as soon as all that would happen, he would give you an experience and he would bring the experience to a close. He would bring you close to him, then he would, send you away. So it was a very, very mystical kind of a journey, but I never questioned it. I had no doubts in my mind that, I had signed up for something which was, truly magical. So 2011, while I was shattered, I found that, life without that beautiful, loving form with whom I had got so much attached. And I had the last darshan of his was in the Guru Purnima of 2010, where he had magically got me in his presence once again when I was not planning to. How he sent for me, how he had somebody arrange a ticket, and how I got, to be in his personal presence, told me that, these were relationships which were beyond this world, which was beyond this lifetime, because I had not spent, much time in his physical presence. I knew something was being enacted, which had to do, something with our past lifetime. And as my grieving of losing his form got over, within 3 months of that, I lost my father as well. And so I got 2 big jolts within a short space of time. And my journey into detachment had truly started to gather pace. Yet there was a deep experience of oneness where I felt being guided at every step, where I intuitively felt a presence that was always there to guide you. That story started to deepen for as far as my work was concerned, I set up my own individual consulting and coaching practice. I would take up only that much of work which would keep me busy and would make sure that the requirements of my family were met, because I had lost all appetite for making it big in life or going towards the goal of becoming someone. And Swami was hell bent on taking me on a journey of becoming a nobody. I must admit that this journey became scary at quite a few times. It's difficult to let go of literally all when Swami comes over and when Swami wants you to live with him. It comes at a price, and it comes at the cost of letting go all sense of achievement, possession, scholarship, ability, and wealth, and even family. In 2016, Swami took away my beloved wife from a brutal cancer that came out of nowhere. And within a period of 3 months, she merged with Swami. And that to me was at that time a blow which I thought it'd be very hard to recover. Leaving behind two teenage children, uh, and having to deal with one more loved one having a uh, leaving you to face the consequences of separation. And that brought into my life the whole understanding of motherhood. Fathers have a completely different DNA than a mother. And fathers are the providers, they are the strict disciplinarians, and they are the ones who are responsible for teaching their children lessons. Whereas the mother is the one which goes and loves. Mother is the one which is always there for the children. And Swami put me to the unfamiliar role of becoming a mother to my grieving children. And I learned how to flow that love. That love till then was only directed towards Swami. But that love had to be now activated for the children who were missing their mother. And things that I thought were not possible started to happen to me. I learned how to cook food. I learned how to be there for my children. I learned to be around my children without, making a lesson out of everything. I started to indulge my children when it was, so uncomfortable for me, right? But I started to feel that there was a presence. See, when Swami left his body, I felt his presence with me. When my father left his body, I felt his presence with me. When my wife left her body, I felt her presence with me. And I started to realize that people don't leave. The bodies leave. The presence is always there. And if you tune into the presence makes itself available to you. I started to ask question to this presence, and this presence would start to answer to me. I learned a big, very important lesson, that the souls are in eternity. The bodies are mortal. The bodies come and go. They are not permanent. They are not the truth. But the soul is permanent. I would have never known this. Had somebody told me I had to lose all my loved ones to learn this lesson, I would have not signed up for it. But I had signed up to get the experience for which the master had come. The master had been complaining till then. You all come to me to get what you want, but none of you comes to me for what I have come to give. I signed up for that because that is what appealed to me. I wanted to know what was real. But had I known what is the cost I am going to pay for it, I don't know if I would have signed up for it. But you know, the master and his plans and his ways of teaching, they are mysterious. And I started to experience not just the presence, I started to experience that the presence started to, or that consciousness started to reveal things to me. And my writings began, my blogs started, and I realized I started to access that part of consciousness from where the truth would come from depths of time. And those truths would come out to me so easily, as if somebody was dictating it to me. And I used to wonder, where does this truth come from? I have not read it. I have not learnt it. I have not read the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita. I have not read any of these books. And then the consciousness said, this is how the ancient rishis and the sages received the messages from consciousness. This is the basis of the Vedas and the Upanishads. This is the parampara, the Guru Shishya parampara that has been carried on from time immemorial in our rich culture. This is how wisdom and knowledge has been passed on. And that is the same source from where it comes. Remember, my master had said, you and I are one. The master knew that it is Brahman, and the master knows that there is that Brahman. But this disciple or lover of his had not gained that experience. For that experience to be experienced, all these circumstances had to be set up where you had to keep letting go. Where you had to, every time you let go of a relationship or of things that you were attached with, there was something else being released to you in terms of energy, in terms of consciousness, in terms of understanding. The more you were emptying yourself, the more he was filling you in. We are so full of ourselves. We are so full of our intellect, our understanding of Swami itself. We hold him in a box. We hold him a prisoner of our experiences with him. And we are so romantically involved with them that we don't want to go beyond that. But he wanted to give me the understanding that living with him as my inner guru, I would know this by now, that giving was the lesson that I had come to learn. That only when you give is when you get. You give and you get. That's the principle which Sathya Sai Baba in his life has amply demonstrated to each one of us. He just gave and gave and gave and gave. A boy born in a remote village in Puttaparthi was able to do such impossible projects in the entire world by only giving. And as he gave, because it's a universal life force, it's an energy. As you give, energy comes back and fills it up, because energy can neither be created nor can be destroyed. And this principle of giving that he taught me was the principle of love. Because what you give, you can only give when there is an underlying feeling of love. You can give when you are not attached. You can give when you are in oneness. And that love starts to flow. And then I realized what he meant when he said, we are the embodiments of love. And slowly, all his lessons, all that I had heard him say millions of times, I had read in, other great books of great masters. They started to become living things with me. They were no longer something that, is good to hear. The master was instructing me, and the more I let go of my insecurities, fears, opinions, judgments, ideas, beliefs, the more he was willing to fill you with what he had to give you. And then came a very interesting phenomena. I had heard about Swami being present in the subtle phenomena, that he had given up his body, but he was still operating in the subtle phenomena. And I understood it perfectly, because what I was experiencing was nothing but a subtle phenomena, because I'm experiencing it also in myself. I'm sure hundreds of us are experiencing him. And I started to I thought about it, and I said, but that's the message. His work is not over. He said, I have come to give you the experience that you are God. And if I become God, and if I become that embodiment of that divinity, then will people say I am a subtle phenomena of Bhagwan? And I knew about a lot of things happening, a lot of people communicating, a lot of people doing, fantastic work, for Swami. To me, everything was possible, because this is what he was trying to tell us, that I am not a form. I come again and again. I come again and again. I take different forms. But my message is only one, because the truth is only one. How can truth change? And so anybody who accesses that universal life force, or that Brahman, that has to be channeling that divine energy. And what is that energy? And what is Sai Baba? Remember, we started off by saying, who is Sai? Is he a form? Or is he an essence? Is he an essence of the truth that he came to give all of us? And I had an opportunity because Swami had, as I told you, I've not shared with you any of my dreams. I have not shared with you any of the things that Swami had instructed me deliberately, because I want to. I wanted to talk about, and I'm sure you've heard many of the experiences from hundreds of devotees who've had far better experiences than I have. But I wanted to share with you what the third phase, which started off with me in 2018, when actually in 2017 I came in touch with a subtle phenomena that was going on. There was so much of controversy about it. I wanted to check it out for myself, because to me, from an understanding standpoint, I knew that it was absolutely possible, because Lord works through all of us. Lord has instruments. We are all the arms and legs of that same one Lord, which is that one universal life force. You want to call him by a name, it's up to you. You want to call him universal consciousness, it's up to you. You want to call it Brahman, it's up to you. You want to call it as a pure energy of love, it's up to you. But I found a presence at a particular place, and that presence spoke to me about what only I and Swami knew. And I did not have a minute's hesitation that this same phenomena is being experienced once again. I have had no problems with the form. Remember, I had moved beyond the form because I've been living with that master within. So to me, every form is divine form. How can there be any form which is less divine than the other? How can there be anybody lesser God than the other God? Or how can be anybody more God than the other God? And I started off uh, with being, I remember the first time I met the subtle form told me, "Hey, professor, this was Gauri Puja Day 2017. He looked at me and he said, "Hey, professor, you finally come. I have been waiting for you. Where all have you been?" I was quite surprised that he called me professor, because I had never taught before, except for one small interaction in Puttaparthi, where I taught the MBA students uh, a course on business ethics. So he called me professor. He told me, "Professor, I have many, many, many things for you to do, but I want you to come unattached to me. I'm starting a university in Gulbarga in 2018, and I want you to come unattached to me. I'm starting it in June of 2018. Just imagine the clarity, and this was September of 2017. Just imagine the clarity that I had, that I let go of all my last physical attachments, my home, my property, right? With two suitcases and one car, I drove all the way from Delhi to Karnataka, and I came into an unknown place called Gulbarga, not knowing what I'm going to teach or if I am capable of teaching anything. I lived from a 5-bedroom house. I came to staying in a one room in a hostel. I was eating food full of chilies that I was not accustomed to. And on top of it, I was given 5 subjects to teach. And amongst them was to teach the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita. And when, I was given that assignment, I said, "Oh boy, what did I sign up for?" Okay. I think I have bitten more than I can chew. But I remembered that I'm one with him. I do not know Bhagavad Gita. I do not know the Upanishads. But that consciousness knows. And I tell you, I said, you're going to test me, I'm going to test you. If this is the truth, this is now when it will either be exposed or it will be proved. And I'll tell you, the first lecture of the Sri Sathya Sai University for Human Excellence was taken on a Thursday. The first lecture was taken by me. Okay. And the first day when I went to teach the Upanishads, I had no clue, except I just tried to see if I could pronounce the shloka properly in Sanskrit. I went into the class and I said, it's you who's taking the class. Let all your understanding be my understanding. And there started my great revelation when I started to teach as if I was a professional teacher, except this teacher would go unprepared in the class. And I started to experience this most magical journey of surrendering to the higher consciousness and knowing that that higher consciousness is ever present, is one with you. And the more I went forward in this, the more hardships continued, heat, extreme heat. Though I come from Delhi, I'm used to heat, but I was not used to the Gulbarga kind of a heat. My stomach started to play. Our God is our, this presence called Sathya Sai Baba is not an easy presence to deal with, especially when you sign up for being in love with him and, to experience that divinity. But if you hold on to that, you will start experiencing the presence of this truth everywhere, in everyone. You hold on to him. He takes you through such unrealistic challenges that beyond that, when you sit back and you realize what you've come through. And by the way, within 3 months of my reaching Gulbarga, my last blow came. I lost my mother as well. Methodically, he was after me. He did not want any attachment left in my life. And yet he wanted me to fulfill all my duties and responsibilities as a parent. I'm a parent of a son and a daughter whose responsibilities I could not neglect and whom I had to love as a mother. On one hand, he's taking away my relationships. And on the other hand, he's wanting me to invest in the relationships, but learning how to love in a detached manner. And in 2020, so this was the continuation of the second phase of living with God. And in 2020, he sent me a message. I used to conduct a lot of meditation sessions online, and I used to do a lot of satsangs. And then one day he sent me a message saying, look, you know all that needs to be known. You are experiencing it, but I want you to now become one with it. This was middle of 2020 when the whole pandemic hit us and we were forced into isolation. And I went into silence. And I went deep into experiencing this whole journey that I had traversed with Sai, of first living for him, then living with him. And something happened. And I think it took me to a point where I suddenly one day felt as if the laws of gravity were no longer applicable. I suddenly felt that that pain, whether it's a physical pain or the pain of people being who they are, the heaviness of existence, the discomfort at certain times, that just ceased. And I started to find myself as if released from the clutches of the laws of gravity. I started to feel as if some wings had come. I started to feel as if there was this sense of lightness about my being. And I started to feel free. And I started to feel at ease with my own self at all times. And I was no longer confined to this feeling of comfort at a particular place. And I started to experience this everywhere. And therefore, everywhere I went, it became my home. Remember, home is a place where we all feel comfortable, where we feel absolutely at ease. When we travel, we want to come home because, oh, there's nothing like home. That's what we say. Why? Because we feel very easy and comfortable at home. I suddenly realized the world was becoming my home. He had told me, be prepared. I'm going to send you all over the world. You're going to carry my divine love to every corner of the globe. And he asked me in October of 2019, are you ready? He says, you will not have a minute to spare. You will be traveling from country to country. You have asked for setting up the International Center for Human Values and Ethics. I am going to set up a branch of that in every country in the world. And you, my dear, are going to be traveling to each one of them. I said, Swami, I had imagined a small center. He says, remember, at that time, in 2009, when I had presented to him, he said, it was your project. He says, now it's mine. And you are mine. And now I want to tell you, my friends, I live in God. I don't live for God. I don't live with God. I live in God, because all that I have spoken to you today is what he wanted me to tell you today. And remember, the Upanishads have always exhorted all of us to say that liberation or understanding of the truth of our being is the only goal for which we take birth. Atmano mokshartam jagat hitaya. That unless and until we experience the Atma, and by achieving that moksha, we cannot do any service to mankind. Because only when we experience that we are that divine consciousness is when we will experience the divine consciousness in every being. And then truly we will be able to do service to our brethren. And then alone will this whole world will become one family, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. And this is the message of the life of Sathya Sai Baba. This is the message that he came to give us every time he incarnated in various bodies that he took. And that is how this golden age is coming. It's not coming by, us just remembering Swami and remembering the golden memories of our experiences with Swami. this world will come with a great responsibility on the shoulders of each one of us who is listening to this. We have to do our part. We have to start living the essence of what our master stood for. We have to be the embodiments of that truth. He said, I am a speaker of truth. We are also the speakers of the truth. We are going to live that truth. The truth that we are the embodiments of love, and love is what our Swami was, is, and will continue to be, because he's present through each one of us. Because this is what he came to give us. He came to remind us the glory of who we truly are. We are the sons of the Lord. We are the inheritors of that great kingdom of his. And yet we live like paupers, holding on to just memories and holding on to the romance of the past. We are not willing to move forward. Time has moved forward. What was real to me in the past is he has shattered as a complete untruth which the world had made me believe and imagine. All my attachments were false. All my accomplishments were false. All my understanding of that, what I believed to be the real, was unreal. Everything has changed. And now I do not have any physical attachment. Yet I experience everything. And that is what this consciousness has inspired me today to share with all of you. I hope it hasn't been boring. I hope I have not offended anybody's sense and sensibilities. For that, you must pardon me. I get carried away because, to me, my life begins now. He told me, when I went to him in the subtle form, he says, Professor, your work begins now. No, he said, the work of this lifetime begins now. And I said, oh my God, 51 years of life, and I have not done anything. And truly now I realize that now what I do is not because A, B, or C, or anybody is going to tell me to do. I'm going to do what I will do only because that is what I have to do. It is who I am. And one simple way with which I have started to live my life at this point of time, I say yes to life. Whatever comes my way, I say yes to it. You see, it depends upon what you are wanting to experience. You see, as long as you keep looking at Swami and it keeps reminding you of the form, and it keeps reminding you of a form which is other than you, then that will continue to be your state of experience. But if if the mental conversation of the conversation you're having with yourself every time you look at Swami is that I am looking at my own self, the conversation within yourself will start to change. You see, what happens with awareness and all that I have shared with you is the journey of the deepening of the awareness. Because what shifts for us, though our physical circumstances change, our attachments change, our relationships change, At our physical level, we remain the same, but something shifts deep within us, and that is our awareness. Our awareness of the presence of the consciousness changes. So, what we have to do is we have to change the dialogue which is going on in our mind. You see, the world is a world, but what we make out of the world can both be a pretty place and the world can be a place which is full of all diabolical things that are happening. And it could be full of negativity. It depends upon what is the dialogue in my mind. And therefore, what is this picture which is so endearing for all of us who love Sathya Sai Baba? This picture is so endearing. Now, what does that picture do? It can do two things. It can either, it can keep us trapped in a physical domain where we keep looking at it and it reminds us of the absence of Swami and the prettiness of that picture, or it can trigger off the opposite. It can trigger off how beautiful was the form and how beautifully he said that I am him, right? And that every time you see him, it experiences you the majesty of your own being. It depends upon your inner dialogue. So to me, the picture is not actually the picture is an inspiration, right? It's a case of how you look at it, a glass half empty or a half full. So to me, every picture of his reminds me of how beautiful, he has created me to be a reflection of him. Okay, and I hope that I can do justice to it, right? I can live up to the faith that he has had in me. This is a very beautiful question. uh, you see, to my understanding, and I had done a small a booklet also, uh, called The 9 Steps to Divinity, Satchit Anand. And to me, there, the step 2 is what I believe is the key criteria for accomplishing this. And that is called yearning. Okay? If you yearn for this, if you yearn to be in the awareness of that truth at all times, it's the most powerful magnet which can shift things. See, remember, I yearned to experience the truth that he was speaking. I just held on to that. Everything happened in my life. I was treated like a rag doll. I was, thrown up and down. I went through a tumultuous, set of experiences. But I was like a dog who had a bone in his mouth. And I was not willing to let go of that bone. Right? No matter what, life was, about to do to me. I wasn't going to let go. Right? And it's like holding a space. Love is the most beautiful thing. Okay. I have now been teaching for the last 3.5 years. I have taught children from 7th grade onwards to the university. I've taught teachers, I've taught staff. I have done, hundreds of satsang sessions, right, with elderly people as well. I have only learned one thing. All that you need to do is to hold the space of love. And that love creates magic. And love is who we truly are. Love is what Brahman is. Love is what Sai Baba is. And love makes the world go round. And only love is real. If you remember this and hold on to this one truth and hold it with you at all points of time, Raghav, you do not have to do anything else. It will do everything for you. Hold on to this, yearn for it and hold on to it. And mark my words, is the truth that I'm telling you, things will transform around you. And there is nothing like experience. You see, Swami had said so many things, right? Upanishads tell us, Bible tells us, all the religious manuscripts tell us some, about the truth. But this is all borrowed truth. It is somebody else's truth. We cannot do romance on that truth. You have to make that truth as your truth. You have to do it by your direct experience, first hand. And then you will be the living embodiments of that truth. So you got to hold on to it. And I would like you to experience it. And you and I had these conversations even when you came for my program. I know you have it in you and you will do it. Just hold on to it. One beautiful thought I had, I just, wanted to share with you that, we keep many times, a lot of us keep asking this question, what's the difference between free will and destiny? Okay. I'll just give you a trick today. Free will is when you jump yourself and start swimming. Destiny is when somebody pushes you into the water. You see, in life, things are going to happen as they are meant to happen. The question is, do you want Sai Baba to push you into it, or are you going to do it by yourself? Okay? If you understand what I'm saying, this could hold the key to a very magical journey. Yeah, also what I'm saying is that, you see, for letting go is nothing but surrendering, right? Which is what Krishna said in 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right? But for that, the necessary conditions, there are a few conditions that you must fulfill, right? One is, as I said, remember I told you, first I met a master whom I tested, okay? And I believed him to be my master who knew the truth, right? Then I believed in him. And slowly, through my experiences, that belief converted into faith. And the faith finally turned into the third stage, which is called the stage of knowingness. You see, these are three very different stages of our evolution with any guru. One is belief. Belief is, you've heard about it. You've heard that Sai Baba is a great master. Okay? And so many of your friends and your loved ones, your family members, they, believe in Sai Baba. So you also believe in him, right? Then you test your belief. With experience, belief turns into faith. You start having a firmer conviction. Okay? That is when it becomes faith. And then faith, ultimately on the touchstone of further experiences, gets into the stage of what is called as knowingness. It is no longer about faith. It's about knowing. It's like, as much as confidence as you have in your own abilities is how much you have confidence on your master. And that is what is required to be able to surrender. Because you are not doing it blindly. You are yearning for the truth. And that is what attracts a master to you. That's how the master comes in your life, because you're yearning. The master knows you are ready. And that's when the master comes and catches hold of you. And then you surrender to the master and you start, you then trust the master. The master knows what's good for you. And the only thing you keep telling the master, I want to experience the truth. I want to experience the truth. I want to experience the truth, right? It'll come to you. And let go of, and as the experiences start coming, remember, this is all unreal. To go to, you see, to go to a state of reality, which we have not experienced so far, we will have to let go of what we believe to be a reality at this point of time. Okay? That means we have to accept change. And if you understand that the change is going to come, but you do not lose that, knowingness of your master, then the master will take you where you need to be. But if at the first sign of trouble, at the first sign of something going, out of control, we're all control freaks. So the minute it starts going out of control, we start losing faith in our master. We say, no, I did not sign up for that. That's why they say the path of spirituality, the Upanishads say that only a dhira is an extremely courageous person who's fearless, can walk on. So in Katho Upanishad, Nachiketa was a dhira. He was able to, even confront Yama and take from him the boon that he was not willing to give anyone. That's the reason he empties you. That's the reason he tests you. That's the reason he takes you out of your comfort zone. Because remaining in the comfort zone, you will not understand anything. And, for us, to me, the proposition was very simple. One lifetime, one opportunity. Though, Swami told me, he and I have, he says, every time I come, you come with me. I don't know that, right? He says, there is a law of karma, there is a law of reincarnation. Yeah, they sound good. But to me, this is the present moment. This is the only lifetime. If I've been so fortunate to be born at the time when a master, an avatar, a Purna avatar took birth, I would be a fool to let go of this opportunity, not to experience the divinity in me. Why should I, be happy with small chocolates that, he is giving in terms of becoming good in this and good in that? No. I want what he's come for. I don't want anything else. I don't even want to, have an institute of human values now. I don't want anything. I just want to live in this beauty, this state that I am in at this point of time. I just want to be that. I want to sleep when I want to sleep. I want to eat when I want to eat. I want to do what I want to do. I just want to be in this state. There's nothing else left. All those desires, all those destinations, everything, has just slowly fallen away by the side. Yet we enjoy everything that comes. Yeah, that's a very beautiful question. You see, he has, or consciousness has given us two very beautiful virtues to work as a compass to negotiate through life. And these are called Viveka and Vairagya. Okay? They're like two sides of the same coin. And they kind of feed on each other. Vairagya brings Viveka and Viveka, feeds on to Vairagya. It kind of, they work together. So and detachment brings Vairagya, right? So that Viveka, that discriminating capacity starts to come in you. And that discriminating capacity is nothing but that consciousness speaking to you. You may call it as an intuitive ability. When we say the voice of God, or we say our inner guru speaking to us, is nothing but our inner intuition, or what we call as voice of consciousness. A lot of times instinctively our heart, from within we know what we need to do, but then our mind rationalizes it, and the mind superimposes it, and then it brings in 100 logical reasons of why you should not be doing a certain thing. Okay, that's when the mind takes over, right? But the first prompting that comes from your heart. Okay, and that is the voice of intuition. That is what the consciousness is trying to tell you. But we have trained our mind to tell us things. We've never trained our consciousness to speak to us. So it takes, as you go into this beautiful journey of where, I pretty much for years had to, construct a road beneath my feet. It used to be always like trudging in the precipice of darkness, and not knowing that next step is going to fall on firm ground or you're going to fall in an abyss. Okay, but you would just move on, with a trust, with a knowing that there is a path, and it would come. Okay, and slowly what happens, that there is an ability in you which has never been used, which has never been developed, suddenly starts to come to the forefront. And that is the ability of your inner voice, your intuitive capacity, your intuitive ability. And as it starts to, and the only way to develop it is to listen to it, is to pay heed to it, and to do something about it. And as you do something about it and you realize, oh, it didn't, and your mind is shrieking and saying, no, 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 that's not the way to go, right? But if you go and heed to it, it will open up an understanding for you, right? And then you take one more step, right? And slowly you train the inner consciousness. It takes time. Okay, and you start to know now what your mind is playing tricks or your consciousness is telling you. All right, and every time you want to play it safe, you will go for the mind, right? And through this you will develop an ability, and you would know now what needs to be done. And as you go for it, and you will realize, when you delay it, when you don't do it what it is saying, it will again happen that way, but it will happen with a certain pain or a cost attached. You see, when somebody, the difference is, either you give up something or someone will snatch it away from you. In any case, you're going to lose it, right? Snatching is never good, but if you give it up, you feel, you're the larger one, you grow. That's what I'm trying to say. It happens, as you go on this path, as this awareness starts to develop, as you start to watch your own self, you start to realize, oh, this is how it works. There's a very beautiful inner mechanics of how life unfolds for you in front of you. Absolutely. And do what you feel is right and not what you think is right. And don't be guided by the consequences of what might happen. You never know. You just have to go with that. See, it's like an inner treasure which is waiting to be discovered, and you have to take the steps towards it, right? And if you chicken out, of course, it'll always be there. It's like that kasturi, which the deer always had, just could not, ever extract it. Just felt mad about it, but didn't know that it was always there. That's the challenge with all of us. See, the point is how, why do we enjoy playing a game? Think of, answers to two questions. Why do we enjoy playing a game? One question. Second question is, why do we feel okay even though we've had a bad dream? See, I think everybody enjoys a game because we believe it's a game. We wake up from a dream, even a bad dream, and we know we shrug it off because we think it's not real. Okay? Game also, there are no stakes attached. Even if your team is losing, for a minute you feel bad, then you're okay. Okay? Because it's not real. Just imagine. I want you to think, and maybe we can talk again. I want you to leave you now with this thought. Just imagine that what you believe to be true, to be real at this point of time, what if it was just a big game? And what if it was just a, either a good dream or a bad dream, depending upon which side of life you are? maybe it's not real at all. And maybe it's time for us to ask ourselves this question, and what is coming in the way between us experiencing the reality of who we truly are?